Welcome to the second part of a two-part series. The fall edition of If You Like This Book, Then I Think You Will Like That Book. It's a rainy autumn afternoon and the leaves on the trees are turning. It's a perfect afternoon to cuddle up with a warm cup of tea and talk about books. I'm going to have a comparison between an adult or a more adult-themed, adult content version of a book. If you liked that, you would like a more tame, maybe middle grade book, so that you kind of have the two extremes, but there is a connection between the two of them. And in this video, I am recommending books that I have read, not any that are on a TBR. The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana is the story of Micah Moon, who is a witch that is in a very secret society, she's named it herself, of witches that are only allowed to connect in these very infrequent meetings, and they're not allowed to socialize outside of those meetings. And it is a way to protect magic and to make sure that they are not getting too much power. And so it's a very isolated life. She was raised by a fellow witch, but the witch hired nannies to take care of her. And so Micah ends up creating this YouTube channel that showcases her magic. She makes it look like it's a facade when in reality it's real magic. Through that, she does get attention for her magic, and she is invited to stay at this old manor. The people who invite her there want her to teach 3 very young, immature, unskilled witches. And so this goes against all the rules of the Society of Witches that Micah is a part of. She is not supposed to be close to other witches, certainly not training a bunch of witches together. It will create too much magic and cause people to be able to notice what's going on. But Micah decides that she is going to take a chance and try to teach these young witches against all of the rules that she has been taught. Through this, there's actually a love interest in this. I will say this is a little bit spicy and there are curse words in it, so it's definitely an adult novel. But it is a very alluring premise, and I was able to kind of skip through the open door parts that really kind of made me uncomfortable. It's getting a lot of traction. I think a lot of people are interested in reading it, and so I just wanted to offer a little bit more middle grade level book, and that is Marvelers by Dion Clayton. In this book, Ella Durant is invited to attend the Arcanum Institute as a conjurer. And no conjurers have been trained at this magical academy because conjurers is seen as doing a little bit more dark magic. And so Ella Durant's father is the lead politician in the undead, and they are able to cross over, whereas other regular witches are not. So once Ella gets to this academy, she really starts to experience some bullying and is not accepted into the masses of other powerful witches that are training there. She does develop friendships with kind of the misfits, and she starts to go against what it is that the school allows as far as trying to figure out why her mentor is missing, why she is finding kind of strange things in the basement of this academy. And she, with her friends, decide that they are going to try to figure out what the history was and buck the system and help find where her mentor is. So there's like a mystery that gets unraveled there. So if you like this underlying mystery, which is in both of the Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches as well as in Marvelers, if you like the idea of someone who isn't necessarily following the rules and the standards that are set before them, there's also this sense of being separated and being lonely. The conjurers are very separated from what it is that the normal magician magic world is doing. And so that same sense of loneliness and separation is a running theme throughout both of these books. Hotel Nantucket by Ellen Hilderbrand does have a summer vibe. I think it's set in summer, but there is a ghost character, and you get the ghost character's backstory, and she is very much a part of the entire book. And so of all the Ellen Hilderbrand books that I've read, I've loved this one the best, and I think it is a really solid fall read. So we start with Lisbeth. She has discovered at the beginning of the book that her business partner and lover has betrayed her. And so she breaks it off with him. She leaves their shared business, and she gets a job from Xavier Darling, who is this billionaire who has decided to renovate this hotel that is haunted. And he hires Lisbeth as the manager. She is to do all of the hiring and staffing of the place. And his goal is that they will receive the elusive 5 keys from Shelley Carpenter, who is a social media influencer, the top of the line for hotels. And he wants to get that rating and that score that no other hotel has gotten, and he expects Lisbeth to get that. The problem is the ghost is really kind of doing her best to mess with that service that they're supposed to be providing, and there is also a lot of drama and mess that the characters and the staff experience. It's definitely a challenge for Lisbeth. City of Ghosts by V.E. Schwab is a middle grade novel that focuses on Cass, who is a girl who almost died, and in the process of almost drowning, she develops a friend named Jacob, who is a ghost. She's the only one that can see him. They are able to communicate really well within her thoughts. She has parents who are videographers who are always searching for paranormal activity, and so they end up in Edinburgh. And Cass, because of her ability to talk to Jacob, and almost dying, she's able to cross into the supernatural side where she can see ghosts and other creatures. And when they go to Edinburgh, she discovers this really evil character that is, for lack of a better way to describe it, kind of harvesting children to be able to continue to have her ghostly powers. And Cass needs to figure out how to save the people in Edinburgh. So if you like this idea of a ghost that has this past history that is coming back in to haunt the future, if you like the idea of characters being able to interact with and sense and feel ghosts, then I would think either one of these is a really great option for you. Also, there is a movie that I think is on Prime called Annabelle Hooper and the Ghost of Nantucket that ties really, really well with the Hotel Nantucket. If any of that sounds good to you, then look up that movie. I think it's PG, so other than it kind of being creepy because of the ghosts and they kind of build that up in your mind, I think it's a fun family movie. Next is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, also by V.E. Schwab. This is a challenging one because there's really not a lot of other books out there like it, but I did want to mention it because it is such a great fall read. So Addie LaRue is a female who makes a Faustian bargain early on in her life in the 1700s in rural France that she does not want to get married as her whole family expects. And she wants to be able to live a life where she is free to make choices. And so she makes that agreement and she gains immortality, but her family does not recognize her. And the creature that she makes the agreement with, this Faustian bargain, comes into her life. They have an anniversary of the day that she made that decision, so he typically sees her then. And then all throughout her life, he's there. But she is the girl who is not memorable. You meet her one day, and then the next day, you can't remember that you met her. But one day, she meets a boy who does remember her. And so her life changes from that moment on. This is a really great book. I love this book so much. And so when I thought about what would I recommend for somebody who loved this book, I came up with The Wingfeather Saga by Andrew Peterson. Now, there's such a huge divide, I think, that you could see between those. The Wingfeather Saga is a Christian allegory novel. This, I don't think, is intended to be that. There's also a lot more fantasy in the Wingfeather Saga. It is 5 books, I think, but the first one is On the Edge of the Dark Sea of Darkness. So the Igby siblings, there is an older brother, Janner. Kalmar is the second brother, and then their sister who has a disability, Leli. They are living with their grandfather and their mother in this little town. It's so hard to explain. And in this first book, it turns out that there is a ruler who is evil, who has these like weird minions that collect people into carriages and take them off. They are looking for the jewels of Anaria, and they think that this family has the jewels or knows where they are. The family has to go on the run. One of the things that I love about the Wingfeather Saga is that there are maps and drawings, and it really does a great job at world building. And the reason why, as I was looking through all the books that I've read and thinking about how it would connect with Addie LaRue, is that, without giving away too much, one of the characters makes a deal and a decision that forever alters his life, and it becomes a thing that weighs really heavily on him. He's not able to tell people. It affects his future. And so just the idea of having these two important and strong characters who make these decisions that at the time seemed like the right decision, but then as life progresses, they realize that maybe that wasn't the right decision to make, or maybe there was another way around it. I think that character in Wingfeather Saga, because I don't want to give too much away, and Addie LaRue have a lot in common with that, making that Faustian bargain. So I will say Wingfeather Saga is a very big commitment. I would recommend the Audible versions. I will also say this, while it is middle grade, again, I would push it to like that older middle grade age group, because there's a lot of trigger warnings with harvesting children, human trafficking, violence, peril. So there's a lot. It's very intense. If you liked Addie LaRue, I would recommend giving Wingfeather Saga a go. So I have this Agatha Christie novel. This is the Hercule Poirot, just 5-book publication that Avenel Books decided to choose these 5 books. But inside of this is The Murder on the Orient Express. This is also a really great movie, in my opinion. So the premise on there is that they're on the Orient Express, which is this lovely train, and there is a murder, and Hercule Poirot is right there in amongst it, and he's got to figure out what the murder on the train was about and who the murderer was. So if you like that idea of a mystery like that on a train, I would recommend How to Get Away with Myrtle, which is a Myrtle Hardcastle mystery by Elizabeth Bunko. This is actually the second in a series. I don't think you would need to read the first one. I would recommend it though. I do like the first one, but I wanted to mention this one specifically because there is a murder that happens on a train. If you like the idea of a murder mystery being solved on a train, then The Murder on the Orient Express for an adult, or How to Get Away with Myrtle for a middle grade read. I will say this can be a little gruesome's not really the right word, but she really does get into like the bodily functions and experiences of what happens with someone being murdered. She's very scientific. Probably not to the level of Flavia de Luce, but very similar. But I do love Myrtle Hardcastle. Okay, for the last two, I'm going to go backwards and say, if you liked Book Wanderers, this is by Anna James. This is the story of Tilly Pages, whose mother goes missing. She is in her grandparents' bookstore, and book characters just suddenly sit down and talk to her, like Anne of Green Gables and Alice in Wonderland. And she discovers that characters can come out of books and she can go into books. And so she decides to see if she can do that to try to figure out where her mother went. And this is a whole series. It's quite popular. So I wanted to recommend, it's not necessarily an adult book, but definitely more mature and more peril content. And that is The Forbidden Library by Django Wexler. And this is the story of Alice, whose father disappears in a shipwreck. She goes and lives with her uncle Garyon. She ends up realizing that this special library allows her to go inside of books. And she can travel within them, but she's got to defeat characters basically in the book to be able to get out. So if you like the idea of traveling into books and into stories and bookshops and libraries, this one has a lot of magic and fairies and all of that in it, then I would recommend these two books. Lightfall is a book that I have recommended a lot on this channel. It is by Tim Probert. He currently has 2 books out. I love this artwork so much. It is so much my favorite. I mean, if you want to talk about fall, it's just so lovely. So this is the story of Bee. She is the pig keeper's adopted granddaughter. Well, the pig keeper goes missing. She befriends a Galdurian, and the Galdurian agrees to help her find her pig keeper adopted grandfather. They come to a lot of scary situations, and through that they discover that there's like this ancient curse and being that has been woken up, and everybody is in danger. There is there's a thing about light, which again I think is why it's called that, where like they are very careful about their source of light and not losing it. I think the original sun has disappeared. Phenomenal. If you want a more adult, darker version of something like that, is Amulet by Kazu Kabushi. I mean, it's definitely got a creepier vibe to it. So there's a family tragedy where they lose the father. I mean, again, that's part of the reason why I would say it's older. It's pretty traumatizing. Emily, her brother, and her mother are remaining, and it ends up that she comes across this stone and she becomes the stone keeper. And her mother actually gets, again, really creepy, taken away by this, like, you can see her in there, by this weird creature. And she gets this stone necklace, and she has to be the one to be in charge of this amulet. And she is hoping to be able to use this amulet to go back in time to be able to find her father and save him. There is a huge series. There are rulers and the sons of rulers who are pretty evil and who are after the stone and her as the stone keeper. It's definitely more gruesome and violent and scary, but still a really great option for your older content. Thanks so much for watching. Please feel free to leave below some of your ideas of any of the kind of books where I shared. If you like this, then you would like that. If you can think of other ones that would fit into those categories, or even your own ideas, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. Until next time.